Hi, this is Bob Wells here, and welcome to Undercurrent Stories. This is the show where we hear about people's interests and uncover some fascinating stories at the same time. I hope you enjoy today's show. Hello and welcome to Undercurrent Stories. In today's show, I'm joined by Rick Long. Rick was the most successful sidecar passenger in the Isle of Man's TT history, with 8 victories in total. Hello and welcome to the show, Rick.
Hi, good afternoon. Many thanks for having me, Bob. It's lovely to see you again after our brief meeting over a couple of pints in the local pub a few weeks ago before Christmas.
That was great. I can't believe it was before Christmas, actually, Rick. And it was so great to talk to you then. And we obviously had quite a lot of discussion about what you're doing or what you've done in motorbikes and also on Strongest Man stuff, which we'll talk about. So thanks ever so much coming on the show. Before we talk about your sporting career, can you just tell us a little about yourself, please, Rick? And, you know, what your life's journey's been like and how you became involved in sidecar racing?
Sure, yeah. I originate from Nottingham. Well, place called Stapleford between Nottingham and Derby. My sister still lives there. Lost my dad, unfortunately, the February before COVID, not to COVID. Oh. And so I moved over here to start work in the hospital, Peterborough Hospital, and worked in anaesthetics as an operating department practitioner, which I did for nearly 28 years until I had this said crash, which we're going to discuss later.
And is that actually administering anaesthetics on people?
The actual anaesthetist does that,
right?
But I have done, yes, but under supervision, because you work as a team.
Yeah.
So trained to do cannulations, intubations, and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting job.
Yeah, I bet.
So I did that for nearly 28 years. Involved in all aspects of surgery, plus trauma, go to A&E, trauma cases in theatre, cardiac arrest team, obstetrics, so on the labour ward. So a broad aspect of different types of surgery and very, very interesting. So once I was doing that for nearly 28 years and I had this crash in Germany, which I guess we'll come on to later on, in 2008. And so then I had to change my aspect of what I wanted to do work-wise, because, I didn't want to be a couch potato. It'd be so easy to sit there in front of the telly and watch telly all day or play computer games. So I looked at going into a personal trainer because I've always kept myself fit, Bob. And at the end of the day, it's my fitness that saved my life.
Yes.
After the crash, it was 2 weeks, whether I survived or whether I didn't make it or whatever. So, but anyway, going back into theatres and how I got involved in sidecar racing. Okay, I've always had motorbikes, road bikes. I used to go and watch racing on my motorbike.
Did you start off on mopeds at school and things like that?
Absolutely, when I was 16. Yeah. Even when I was 14, 15, used to go down the local clay pits on an off-road bike and have a bit of fun. So there's a guy who came to work in theatre as a nursing auxiliary, but his job prior to that was working in a motor vehicle garage. Well, his boss in the garage raced sidecars, and he was looking for a passenger.
Oh, right.
So he asked me if I'd be interested. So obviously the ears pricked up, and applied for my license, my race license. So surrendered my medical evidence and filled that in, and had to have an eye test and everything. So off we went on a Wednesday afternoon to Mallory Park at Leicester, because a few years back they used to do cars every morning at Mallory Park on a Wednesday and bikes and sidecars in the afternoon. So I just got hooked on it from there.
Did you?
And it just, one thing led to another.
For listeners who don't know an awful lot about sidecar racing, you're not really a passenger, are you? You're actually helping guide the vehicle round.
Absolutely.
Can you just explain what that's like, please?
Yeah. Okay. The job as a passenger, basically, simple terms, is to stop it tipping over. But the driver sits more to the right-hand side, depending if you're on what we call a long bike or short bike. A long bike is a Formula One, bigger engines in. The engine sits behind the driver. On the Formula 2, which is what they now use for all the Isle of Man TT races, 600cc engine, the engine's underneath the driver's chest, and it's a shorter wheelbase.
Yeah.
The chassis is shorter.
And what size engine is the Formula One?
The Formula One, when I was doing the World Championships, you could go up to 1300cc.
Wow.
But then they cut it down to 1200, but now it went down to, well, a lot of people still run thousands or in club bikes, but they've even cut that down to 600s now, but it's on a long chassis.
Yeah.
So the corner speed is a lot, faster and smoother, I dare say, than what it is on a short bike.
Is that so? You don't have as much weight that you're carrying around with engine?
No.
Is that why it's faster?
Yeah. But on straight line speed on the Formula One bike, it's faster than the 600s, but the corner speed's faster. And but as the passenger, as you said, you're not just sat there like a sack of potatoes. For example, coming off the grid, you're over the back wheel to try and get maximum traction from the back, drive wheel onto the road surface. Going around different corners, sticking with working right-handers. Depending on the severity of the right-hander, you can move your weight forward or back to give the driver more feeling on the steering. And going around left-handers, you can alter your weight in or out, but you work the left-hander, coming back to what I said earlier on, to stop it literally flipping over.
And did you have any training on this, or was it a case of just talking to people that are doing the same thing and learning from them?
Watching what other people were doing, talking to them, and just progress on from there. But it's fantastic because the actual communication, you don't have any communication, with your driver. So it's about getting to know each other, having faith in each other.
Yes.
You can't be thinking what he's going to do next. You've got to know what he's going to do next. Or if he's going to try and outbrake somebody, or if he's going to shoot down the inside or down the outside.
Oh, right. You've almost got to have a sixth sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the longer you race with somebody, the more you get to know each other.
Yeah.
And it becomes second nature, really. Yeah. But it really is good. And then obviously you get, your mechanics, you get your partners and other people, sponsors involved, and it makes a really good times away, shall we say, good weekend.
Tell us about if you don't mind, tell us about your first day out in Mallory Park on the back, actually in the sidecar. What was it like?
I was absolutely bricking it. To be scared. It was on a Suzuki GS, one of the old GS1000 engines. It was quite an old chassis, but because the ground clearance is only 65 millimetres from the floor.
That's about 2.5 inches. That's not very far, is it?
No. It's so you're very close to the floor. So the sensor speed, is a lot greater anyway. Yeah. But we had 4 10-minute sessions, and I absolutely loved it. And the more I got into it, getting into the third and the fourth and final session, you start to relax a little bit, and you're learning the track. The corners and what to do on the corners and whatever. Yeah. So we did a couple more test days there before we entered our first race. But the guy who I was with, Stuart, at the time, he had a national license, but with me just coming into it, I had a novice license. And to let other riders know, because we could only do club meetings, being a novice, I had to wear an orange bib. To let other riders know that I was a novice. Yeah. And that still goes on today.
Does it?
Yeah.
And so what, is that a case of they might make allowances for you?
Yeah. It lets faster riders know that, you are a novice. But to move forward on your licence, you start on a novice licence. And I'm fairly sure it still is now with your licences. You have to do 10 meetings, 3 different circuits, and you have to finish. It used to be, if I remember correctly, in the top 50% of the grid to get a signature. Yeah. So you have to get 10 signatures, 3 different circuits, and then you can go on to restricted license, and then you can go on to national license after that.
Oh, right. So 3 stages. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and then to go on to your international license, from national license, within 2 years, you had to get 15 points on your license. So for a win, or first and second, a national race meeting, you'd get 3 points. So first or second, third or fourth, you'd get 2 points on your licence, and down to 6th place, you'd get 1. And you had 2 years to get 15 points on your licence to upgrade to international. So that's when you can start doing the European Championships, World Championships, and the Isle of Man TT.
And what sort of speeds, just for listeners who've never sort of actually seen this, going on, what type of speeds are you getting on the streets, Rick?
The fastest I would say I've ever been on one was at Monza, and it's a flat out 5th gear, long right hand corner called the Parabolica. Yeah, and then coming out the corner, you kick it in 6th gear, but you gear your outfits. It's the same in car racing. You alter the gear racing for your different circuits. So, like somewhere at Cadwell Park here in Lincolnshire, it's tight and twisty, so you gear it more for acceleration.
Yeah.
But somewhere like Monza, it's a fast circuit. So over 200 mile an hour,
200 miles an hour,
206 mile an hour, something like that.
Unseat, no seatbelt. In the back, in a sidecar.
Yeah. I mean, you've got fairings in front of you, so it's not taking the full wind blast.
Yeah.
But on the 600s, the Formula 2s, because you gear, because he's at the Isle of Man TT, 75% of the lap is flat out on a sidecar.
So I guess the main difference between sidecar racing and motorbike racing when they go around corners is on a motorbike, the driver himself is actually bending down, so to speak, with his knee practically touching the ground.
Yeah.
Whereas he doesn't do that because he's got his sidecar, but you are in effect the guy that's sort of helping move it around.
Keeping it balanced and counterbalanced as well. And don't forget, we've got 3 big fat slicks on it in the drive, or fat tyres on it.
Right.
We do have intermediates and full wets and slicks as well.
Yeah.
Whereas the solo guys, they've just got an inch on each tyre, probably touching the road surface.
Yeah.
So our corner speed is quite a bit faster than the solos, but we don't have as much acceleration.
No. So what type of speed round a corner would you be doing?
Well, depending on the severity of the corner, but coming back to like the Parabolica, you're flat out in 5th gear, so you're doing 160, 100...
Round a corner, round a bend.
Yeah, that's round the right-hander, so as the passenger, you're over to the right-hand side, working it, but you're trying to keep yourself...
Must be thrilling.
Absolutely.
And you obviously felt from the start that you... because you said you had great fun there. You had a certain affinity for it, and it was a natural. It came naturally to you.
I think I took to it easier. It wasn't easy, but I think I took to it easier because of my fitness. I've always been in fitness, strength work. I did martial arts that helped me with moving about on the bike and flexibility, tucking down, etc. And I've always been into doing strength work as well since I was 18 years old. So I think the two work together with flexibility from my martial arts and strength work as well.
Yeah.
And obviously cardio work, which I did a lot of as well. So it went hand in hand.
So you got into it sort of later in life, not as a sort of 20-something-year-old.
No, I was 30 when I started.
Were you?
Yeah, 1991 I started.
Wow.
Yeah, I wish I'd started years earlier, but the opportunity never arose to do it.
But I mean, you've certainly had some great successes. What sort of events did you take part in and win?
Well, club racing, which is where you're building your licence up. Had some good races there, and good memorable races, but then went on to national.
Sorry, just to interrupt. Was this always with the same rider? Do you call them drivers or riders or
driver and passenger?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, driver. And
I must get the terminology right.
No. In the early 90s, I probably had 4 different drivers, but that wasn't just because of me moving up in my licenses. It was them, going different ways, stopping racing because of financial reasons.
And did you start to get a bit of a name for yourself? And they sort of said, we'd like to have Rick.
Yeah, without being big-headed about it. And but as drivers who were going off doing their own thing or whatever, and I wasn't afraid of the speed. In 1993, I bought my own outfit, so I ran it at club meetings, driving it myself.
Your own? When you say outfit, your own motorbike and sidecar? Oh, did you?
Yeah. A Formula 2. Yeah. It had a TZ 350 engine, which is what we always used to run in the Formula 2s, so a 2-stroke engine. And so I rode that for 2 years.
Well, you drove it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, with a little bit, a fair amount of success. I had, a couple of wins. But I was usually in the top 6.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So
you had another passenger?
Yeah. My first passenger I had, bless him, Ian. I don't know if you ever hear this, Ian, but you did well, mate, at the time. But because I knew the circuits and the speed didn't bother me, the time I lost Ian 4 or 5 times, I had to sack him off because he was going to kill me if he didn't kill himself first. But, he was falling off because it wasn't his fault, but I knew the corners, I knew the circuits. And the speed, it just didn't bother me, So, but I always wanted to do the Isle of Man TT. So a guy called Eddie Wright Motorcycles from Leeds. We can come back onto Eddie a fair bit later on. Still involved with Eddie now. I did my first 2 Isle of Man TT races, or 4 races. You have 2 races at each meeting in 1994 and 1995 with Eddie Wright. And in 1993, we finished runner-up in the British Championship. Oh, wow. And I was passengering Eddie then. So it really did start to take off there, racing-wise.
And you found that, and although you'd done very well driving it, you found you were better off as a passenger.
Yeah.
You were winning more competitions doing that than driving.
Yeah.
Different skill sets, like.
Yeah, and it usually the way it goes, not just from the skill set, it's a lot of the time, 90% of the time, it's the driver that owns the bike.
Is it?
Yeah. A lot of times the passenger, which I have done as well, you contribute to the expenses, whether it's, half the entry fees or towards engine rebuilds, stick your hand in the pocket and buy some tyres.
Half the fuel for every race.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing. But every little bit helps, from different directions. But fortunate enough, as you go through your licenses and you start doing like the TT, World Championships, for example, things like that. And then we were quite fortunate with sponsors, and even to the extent that sponsors are buying us bikes to ride.
Oh, wow.
Particularly from 1996 till I stopped racing 2 years ago, I rode with a guy called Rob Fisher, and we won 6 Isle of Man TTs together. But one of our main sponsors, and still was until we stopped racing together because of my injuries 2 years ago, was a guy called Sam Hamilton, Scottish guy. We lost Sam, unfortunately, to a brain tumour, but his son, Ian, took over the reins and is still involved with Rob now.
Right. Was
involved with Rob and I, but he even helps me now towards sponsorship for my strongman. For flights and stuff like that. Yeah. So, very, very fortunate like that. And they're lovely, lovely people to, not just to know, but, to be around as well.
So, and did the sponsorship include manufacturers of motorbikes as well?
Yeah. So at the TT,
what sort of brands of motorbikes were you racing?
Yamaha, Honda. Yeah, they're the 2 main ones.
Have you got a particular favourite?
No. Because engines develop through the years.
Yeah, of course.
So 1 year, a Honda might be better than a Yamaha.
A bit like Formula One.
Yeah.
Racing, car racing.
Yeah, they all progress, don't they?
Yeah.
And then, you go on from talking about progression from the old carburetted engines onto the fuel injection. And with the fuel injection, you have all the engine mapping and stuff like that now. So it's all done on computer now. Yeah. So I think you need a degree in technology to work the computers nowadays.
I don't know an awful lot about this type of racing, but is it a bit like Formula One where they have a team in the pits with computers and they're analysing everything as you're going round? Is that how it's become?
Yeah, you have heat sensors on the brakes,
do they?
All pressure sensors. Yeah, we can read it all off the computer, stuff like that.
So they know if there's something, if you've got a problem, technical problem.
Yeah, and they can alter your engine mapping while you're going around and things like that.
And do they speak to the driver?
No communication while you're on track.
No.
But we have pit board, communication. Right, so pit, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the time you can sense it on the bike anyway. Even coming back to the Isle of Man TT, it's 37.73 miles for 1 lap. But if you've had a good lap or not.
37 miles on 1 lap?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but even by a difference of 5 seconds, 10 seconds, should we say, per lap, if you've done a good lap or not.
Yeah. Are they the type of small margins that you do in when you're racing? 5 seconds
at the TT
in 37 miles.
Yeah, it has been known. Well, even TT last year, the Crow brothers or Manx brothers, they finished second, and they took second from the Founds, Pete Founds, who finished 3rd place. And believe it or not, it was 0.2 of a second. But the whole race was 3 laps, so 114 miles.
0.2 of a second in 3 laps? Over 100 miles?
Wow. 114 miles.
Yeah.
So that's how close it is. Yeah. And, the performance of, well, not just machine, but, the actual riders as well.
So while you were doing all this, you still had a career as well? You were still working?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. My bosses, when I worked at the hospital, were very understanding. And I pretty much worked every weekend. I wasn't away racing, but I used all my holiday allowance up first, and then I was fortunate enough to get extra holiday as well, unpaid,
Yeah.
obviously, you know. But at the end of the day, I was representing my country.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
I was. It's a fantastic achievement, and I guess, I mean, you mentioned about your family before, but I guess that with you mentioned you use your holidays as well. They were right behind you, and they were supporting you, and going with you.
Yeah, we used to have a motorhome, so like now I use a caravan and still do some involved with the racing, but because of me being disabled, I need transportation where I get to. But prior to that, I had a motorhome.
Yeah.
So the thing is, with a caravan, you've got your children with you. They're sat in the back of the car like they would do going to the local seaside or something like that. You know, but at least in the motorhome, which was good for racing abroad, you know, you can keep travelling. You know, your spouse could drive, you could drive. They can make food for you. The kids can sit and watch telly. They can go to bed.
So every weekend is like a holiday for them.
Yeah, yeah.
And was it every weekend you were doing it?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing, say, the British Championship, and you had, let's say, for argument's sake, 8 rounds, and then you do the World Championship, you know, say 8 rounds again, so that's 16 weekends.
Yeah.
But then you've got all your travelling in between and that as well, you know, especially when you're doing the World Championship. You know, there's a lot and European Championship, there's a lot of travelling. So you sort of, you know, you'd leave on, say, the Wednesday and you won't get home till the following Tuesday. So you're away for a week at a time.
Yes.
You know, so, but yeah, it's really good fun. I could recommend it to anybody.
Can you?
Yeah.
So if there's any listeners out there who fancy a go at it, you'd recommend it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is different now getting hold of your licence. They do training school days, but the way to get hold of it for any listener that is interested, the ACU, the Auto Cycle Union, are based in Rugby in Warwickshire. Give them a call. You know, you could just Google it and whatever.
So the difference now is you can actually be trained, whereas you would watch other people and basically learn yourself.
Yeah,
when you
but
did
now you go on training days, so you have to learn the flags and what the different, you know, the marshals' flags and things like that.
Yes.
What they mean. So you've got a good understanding of them, things like that. And and you know, a lot of the teams will teach you basic setup, you know, suspension and that sort of thing as well. Brakes, you have brake biases on them. So, you know, for example, in the dry, you'd run, so you got more grip on the front brakes, whereas in the wet, you alter the bias, so it levels it out, you know, throughout all 3 wheels on the sidecar. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. There's a lot involved.
Certainly sounds it.
Yeah.
And then it all came to a bit of an end, sadly, didn't it? In the early 2000s.
2008.
Can you just tell us what happened?
Yeah, sure. 2008. I was asked to do the Isle of Man TT with a lad called Steve Norbury, and he's never won a TT, but he'd been on the rostrum 11 times. He was from Castleford, Yorkshire. Yeah. So I did the TT with Steve. The first race, we were in 3rd place and broke down on the last lap, and we finished 4th in the second race. And we're still good friends, but as far as I knew, that was it. So there's a good sponsor, used to sponsor the current world champion at the time, who was Tim Reeves. His main sponsor, Gunter Reisling, was a German finance man. And we got invited, or Steve got invited, to go over to do the last round of the German Championship at Hockenheim, and to go over with Tim's team as well. But Paul Napton, who was Steve's regular passenger, was on holiday in Portugal. So because I'd done the TT with him, he asked me, you know, would I do this meeting with him in Germany? And it was a German Championship round. So basically, when I had my crash, I was helping another team out.
Right.
So, which, you know, it's not a problem. No. You know, I won't change that or anything. It's nobody's fault. So we set off on the Wednesday, got there the Thursday. We had practice Friday, 3 practice Saturday, qualifying Saturday, and then in the race on the Sunday afternoon, the crash happened. Yeah. So, unfortunately, Steve lost his life. So had an argument with a wall at over 100 mile an hour.
Did you?
So, because I was out where the centre of the bike is called a monocoque, and you push out with your legs to work a left-hander.
Yes.
And but for whatever reason, when Steve hit the brakes, the bike shot to the right, slid it to the left. The back end of the bike hit the wall first, which, well, basically slapped my legs off, and then the front of the bike.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Afterwards. So
Yeah.
But I was conscious for it all.
Were you?
And it took me 10 months to watch the TV coverage.
I bet it did.
Because, I had a self-doubt. Did I cause it? Did I do something wrong? Although people seeing the races and who had seen it on television or whatever said, no, I didn't. But I had survivor guilt. Why did I survive and Steve didn't?
Yes.
So once I was out of hospital and strong enough mentally, I watched it on TV. And from different camera angles, and I do know now I didn't do anything wrong myself.
Yes.
But I still had counselling for survivor guilt.
You'd have to, wouldn't you?
I think so, I think there's a certain amount of PTSD in there, but I mean, his family have been brilliant, very supportive to me. I still see them at race meetings even now. Really, really good. Yeah. So, but we're all as one big family in sidecars. Even to the extent that if you're at a race meeting, somebody blows an engine up and they haven't got a spare one, and you have, provided obviously they run the same engines as you, you let them use your engine.
Would you?
But it's on a you bend it, you mend it.
Yeah. Sort of. Although you're competing with each other, there's that camaraderie between you.
Absolutely.
Like you say,
when you're on the track, you're against each other.
Yeah.
But there's camaraderie.
That must have been, it's a very traumatic thing that you went through. How long did it take to sort of get back into competitions?
I started racing again, so it happened in 2008.
Yeah. And
I started racing back with Rob again in 2014.
Right.
So Rob and I were invited to the Isle of Man TT to do a parade lap.
Yes.
Which we did. And I knew where the bike was that I had my first win on with Rob in 1997. So we bought the bike back, restored it back to how it was, put it back in our own colours and everything.
Fantastic.
And we went off and did a parade lap, and we both got the bug back.
And did you ever think you'd race again?
No.
But it was because it was this parade lap.
Yeah.
The buzz came back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think Rob will mind me saying this, but Rob had been seriously ill with pancreatic cancer and gallbladder and duodenal. So he'd had what they call the Whipple procedure, the bypass the head of the pancreas bluntly. So for us both to come back and get a chance to do a parade lap at the TT, and, we inquired about getting our race licenses back. So we had to do medicals. I had to do an on-bike assessment by a guy called Roy Hanks. It's a very famous sidecar racing name. Hanks is from the Birmingham area. And so I went to Darley Moor, and I rode with a guy called Dean Banks. Yes. And Roy was on his bike behind us with his daughter passengering, watching what
just observing what you were doing,
making sure I was safe on the bike and I could move around all right and that. So that got ticked off, thankfully. So I had to submit obviously my injuries, medication I was on, and things like that for my ACU license, which is viewed by doctors and whatever. So Rob and I, we went back racing together.
And it all came back.
2014.
Yeah.
And then we went on to do the British Pre-Injection Championship. And we won that in 2016 and in 2019. Yeah. So it was great.
And are you still doing it?
Rob has now had, because of his chemo, he's had bilateral hip replacements. Towards the back end of last year, he had a shoulder replacement, but he's still got the bike. And it's interesting you say that, because mine and Rob's race motto was never say never.
Yeah.
And on our front number plate at the bottom of it, that was
your caption.
It said never say never.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Rob after his shoulder off. So I said, well, you'll be going physio and all that sort of thing now. He says, my physio's in the garage. He said, the fairing sat on the bike. So I said, basically what you're saying then is you can sit on the bike with a fairing on it. You can reach the handlebars. That's your physio. I said, yeah, you got it. So
watch this space is the...
That's what I said to him. And he said, never say never.
No.
So
that's great to hear.
So whether or not he does come back this year or not, remains to be seen. But coming back to what you asked me earlier on, Bob, do you stay with the same team? I started riding with Rob in 1996, and right up until 2 years ago, we rode with each other. Right. So so we was at Alton Park. I thought I'd struggle because my left arm kept going numb, and it started in November before, but I was heavily training because I wanted to do the World Strongman Championship, which was in December. And I shouldn't have done that really, but me being stubborn, shall we say. So I did, and I finished third in the World Championship, even with that.
So what involvement do you have with the TT these days, Rick?
Going back a few years, because they're trying to, and it still does progress on, thankfully, to make the Isle of Man TT races safer, because there's fatalities year after year. As I'm sure people will know, there was even last year, and 2 sidecar crews crashed, 4 riders losing their lives, unfortunately. But anyway, I've gone on more recently to mentoring. And last year, I mentored a ladies' team, Maria Costello, MBE, who is from down Bedfordshire way, but also a young lady I've known for many, many years, Vicky Cook. Vicky's 40 now, but Vicky's stepdad is Eddie Wright, who I mentioned earlier on. I did my first 2 TTs with in 94 and 95.
Yeah.
So hence, as I said earlier on, I still have a connection.
There's a link.
Yeah. With Eddie. And so I'm involved with mentoring still, and with Vicky for the Isle of Man TT races this year, but also with the British Championship coming up and anything else that to do. But Vicky is now, since after the TT last year, I won't go into reasons why, but I've got set up with another rider, but he races solos and sidecars. And the way I got to know this guy, Mike Russell, his name is, call him Jack Russell for obvious reasons. At last year's TT, he was the first guy to ever do it. He raced in every single class. So Superbike, Superstock, Super Sport, which is 600, twins, sidecars. So he had 8 races at last year's TT. So I've now got Vicky involved with that team, who she's racing with this year. And Jack this year is going to have 10 races at the Isle of Man TT, doing every single race. So from Superbike again, Superstock, Super Sport, sidecars.
So mentoring is sort of acting as a coach?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the TT, it's such a big event which people know worldwide anyway, but to actually compete in it, the preparation, machinery, mentally. I mean, when I was doing the TT, just on TV coverage, CD or DVD, I'd do at least 4 laps a week, because as I said earlier on, it's so far around.
Yeah.
And although you don't physically have to work each corner as a passenger, but there's 280 bends in 1 lap.
Yeah.
So you've got
That's
to know.
a lot of moving around, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got to know where you are on the circuit by what the machine is doing underneath you.
Yeah.
And the brakes and the gears, just listening to the engine notes. Because on a sidecar, as a passenger, if you're up looking where you're going all the time, you're knocking your top speed off because you're acting like a sail in the wind.
Yes.
So if you can stay down low, out the wind, knowing what the bike's doing underneath you and listen to the engine, gear changes, things like that.
So you're not actually looking at the route as you travel?
No.
You're looking down most of the time?
Yeah. I mean, you have the occasional look up just to make sure you get your...
But you've already familiarised yourself with the route anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you know where you're going.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to take in.
Do you ever go through periods where you perhaps forget where you are? And lose yourself in your mind?
Wood, I'm touching my head here on your table. Not yet, no,
Right.
no, but...
I had to ask.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do right. No, but it's such a big thing preparation-wise, but also the machinery, because the TT course, a lot of it is very bumpy. You get airborne 2 or 3 times, like the one I just said on my profile picture on Facebook, is Rob and I going over Blaff Bridge. And all 3, you can see on the picture, all 3 wheels are a good foot off the ground.
And before the race that's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a well-known landmark on the TT courses, Blaff Bridge. Everybody gets airborne there. But what you've got to take in consideration is when you land, you've got all your fairing mounts, things like that. So as a passenger, there's like a fairly decent straight afterwards, but you can look down low and check all the fairing mounts and make sure they're not cracking from like where you've had a heavy land or something like that.
Oh, so you've actually got to observe slightly as an engineer as well as you're going around.
Yeah. But then once you're in the paddock, in between practice sessions, the bike's, stripped down, and then even lay underneath it with a magnifying glass, checking all the chassis for like hairline cracks and things like that. Yeah. Because the last thing you want is your full chat at the TT, 165 mile an hour, is for a stress fracture to let go on the chassis.
So it's good. So you enjoy being part of the TT stuff still.
Yeah, and short circuits, British Championships and that as well. Yeah, I still get a buzz from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. You've got to be there to try it, I think. Yeah. Okay. So, looking forward to that this year. And then the other off public road circuit they do is the Southern 100, which is in July, end of July, and that's on the Isle of Man as well.
Yeah.
That's a 4.5 mile round for one lap. But that's really bumpy.
Yes.
And the thing is, the Southern 100 course as well, whereas at the TT, start the race, you go off at 10-second intervals. But the Southern 100, it's done on a mass start. So you're on a public road.
Oh, right.
Curbs and walls and lampposts everywhere, and you're doing a mass start. So it's quite interesting.
Well, you've certainly whetted my appetite to come and see one of these races. It sounds quite exciting.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's a really good, Bob.
Are we at the right place for me to ask you what got you into strongman
Into the
competitions?
strongman?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What got you into the strongman?
What got me into the strongman? I've always watched it on TV. The able-bodied guys, the big guys that are on TV.
You can see it after Christmas. It's not on
That's
most.
right.
Yeah. We were discussing it.
Usually
earlier.
on Channel 5.
Yeah. Great thing to watch.
Yeah, and with me changing careers, I went on to be trained to be a personal trainer.
Oh, did you? What made you want to do that?
I think a lot of it was to do with it was my fitness that saved my life.
Right.
I've got a good knowledge of the human body with me working in theatres for nearly 28 years. And so I looked into that, went off to did that, trained to be a personal trainer.
Is it so? Right. So sorry. So you wanted to be a personal trainer, what, to help other people or help yourself more or both or what?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Both. Yeah. Help myself with me now being disabled.
Yes.
Yeah, but I originally trained to train able-bodied people.
Yeah.
But then once I'd done that, I went on to an additional course called Instructability, which enables me, which I do now, to train disabled people, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
And coming back to what you just said, to help other people,
yeah,
you do get a lot of job satisfaction
I bet
from
you do.
that, whether it's able-bodied or even more so disabled.
Yeah.
And to help them along, see them progress, going on, through the weeks and the months and even years, shall we say. But
and that's one-to-one training, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I worked at the leisure centre, because I work for myself now, I did 2 disabled classes a week, but that's prior to COVID. So, while this COVID's still around, the disabled people won't go back into a leisure centre.
No.
So, and this Strongman Championship I was just on about in 2020, that was done virtually because of the COVID. So I had to go down to Bristol for it. But it was all done very safely. It was all in separate pods. A cleaning team came after you'd done your lift and whatever. Yeah. So, so that was done very safe. But how did I get back into it? When I did this course called Instructability, that was to enable me to train disabled people. And that's how I discovered Disabled Strongman. So that was in 2015, early 2015. So I thought, I'd like a bit of that. So I looked into it more, started training for it.
I was going to say, you're pretty bulked out now. We'll show some photos on the social media and the show notes with you as well. Yeah, but you're pretty bulked out now. Is that since you've been doing that, or were you always fairly...
I was always quite strong and bulked out anyway, but for strength events, and then I did want to bulk out a bit more, but I find it hard getting more weight on sort of like 92, 93 kilos. I just don't carry it well, and but I've obviously been strong enough, shall we say, at that sort of weight. Some of the competitors are against way over 100 kilos in body weight, and but that is how I got involved with Disabled Strongman. And it's really good. I mean, we all encourage each other. It's like the racing. You're against each other when you're lifting. But we all encourage each other.
One big family again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is the family include the able-bodied strongmen as well, or is it something very separate?
It has been separate, but over the past 2 years, particularly at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classics, which I've done in Ohio and here at the NEC. The able-bodied are coming to watch us.
Oh,
yeah. And there is actually a competition this year in June down in Somerset, I believe it is, called Chunk Fest. And it's a trial thing.
Chunk Fest.
Chunk Fest. And it's the able-bodied against the disabled people.
Oh, right.
So we're going head-to-head
against
that'd
be interesting.
them. Yeah. So it'll all be good fun.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other activities going on over that weekend.
Yes.
But, it's really the first time we'll be sort of, head-to-head with them.
Brilliant.
So, we have to do our lifts adaptive.
Yeah.
In my case, we're wearing a full prosthetic leg and my right lower leg's fused. I couldn't, like, for example, my best deadlift, one rep max is 440 kilos.
Yeah.
There's no way I could do that standing up.
No.
Because the prosthetic and my, all the metalwork in my right leg wouldn't take it.
No.
So we have to do it seated.
Yeah.
No, but to make it fair for everybody, in the seated category, your legs are strapped down.
So everybody would have their legs strapped down.
Yeah, so it's all the same. So it's all upper body strength and core strength. So you've got no hip or leg drive.
No.
So so that makes it fair for everybody.
So it's interesting, isn't it? So you got into strongest man stuff. So you've already been successful in your career as a rider or a passenger, and now you become successful in the strongest man. You must have a lot of drive, Rick.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me where I get it from, and as I did say to you earlier on, Bob, I wasn't one to sit down and watch telly all day. I've never been a computer person or computer game person, and it did me good going to train to be a personal trainer because that kept me active in a gym. Obviously, I had there and then the facilities to train as well, although I do have my own good setup at home gym-wise. And, it kept me focused, and the drive comes from, I've always, even when I was able-bodied, I've always needed or wanted something to focus on, a goal to go for.
Yes.
And when I speak to clients now, being a personal trainer, that's what I do. I'll sit them down and say, tell me what your goals are. What is your focus? What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do? And then you work out a plan for them aimed at what they want to achieve.
And do most people have a goal?
Yeah. Whether it's weight loss, whether it's toning, whether it's strength, whether it's to train to be in team events,
or all-round fitness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody has their
so they
own
write
ambitions.
they tell you your goal, and then you work with them to achieve it.
And work out a plan for them. Yeah, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist.
No.
So I can't write them out a diet plan.
No.
I can advise them because I've got a good understanding on diet and that from my own training.
Yes.
And that anyway, and but really I can only go by the right.
We're gonna have to hold the interview.
Break.
Got a little cat break. We've got the cat just coming in. I think he needs feeding, so we'll just see we'll carry on talking and see how he reacts.
Yeah.
This is one of the things about just to let listeners know, we are actually doing a live in-house interview here at my house, and the cat's making a bit of a noise, but we'll carry on anyway.
Yeah. So I found out about Disabled Strongman doing my instructability course. So I trained for a year, near enough a year. Competed my first competition in 2016, and which is at the Strongman Sanctuary down. It wasn't far from Brands Hatch actually. You could hear the bikes going around while we were there.
Do you say Strongman Sanctuary?
Yeah, that's what it's called. It's down in Kent.
Sanctuary.
Yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of competitions there in past years or whatever.
Yeah,
and but I was fortunate enough to win it. It was called the Spring National.
Yeah.
So I went on after that to do the British Championship, and I finished third in the British Championship. So that qualified me for the World Championship in 2016, which was at Manchester. And
so this all happened very quick, didn't it?
It did,
very quickly.
Yeah. But because I had a good idea about strength work and that anyway, and so I've done weight training since I was 18. Yeah. 18 years old. Excuse me. So so in Manchester in the World Championships in the September 2016, I finished second. I lost to an American guy called Derek Carver. And so it carried on from there. 2017, I did the British Championship again. I'm sure I finished second. I went to do the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic in Ohio, in America. Ruptured my shoulder doing log lift, so I had to have shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
So that put me out for the rest of 2017. And so I started competing again, British and World Championship in 2018.
That's quite a fast-paced trip to success, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Winning those tournaments very quickly.
The World Championship in, obviously I had to qualify in the British and whatever, which I got in the top three in.
Yeah.
But the World Championships were in Norway, and I finished fourth there in Norway in 2018.
Yeah.
Got to the World Championships in 2019, which was in Canada, and I finished second there.
Wow.
Again, the guy who beat me there, great bloke, Darren Greenfield, his body weight then was 122 kilos. I was 90 kilos. Darren's about 6'4" tall, but brilliant guy, really good, encouraging to people and whatever. Because of COVID, the World Championship was done virtually. So I went down to Bristol in a big gym down there. The referees, we had 2 referees there, which knew about strongman. One of them was Gavin Bilton. He competes in able-bodied strongman, a Welsh guy, used to be in the Welsh Guards. But then the main adjudicators were Magnus Ver Magnusson and Arnar Mars Johnson, who were in Iceland watching it. But we didn't actually know what results we had until 5 hours after we'd finished.
Right. Because whereas you would normally know immediately after
because you'd all be
so
there together.
just to be clear on actually coming second in the World Championships, I mean, that is going through a series of events.
Yeah.
What sort? Can you just explain some of those events?
Yeah, sure. Very, very similar, although adaptive, because we do them seated.
Yeah.
So if anybody's seen the able-bodied strongman, so for example, the Atlas stones, they'd pick them up off the floor, load them up onto a plinth. So we'd be in a chair, strapped in a chair. And so whether you move on from one plinth to the next plinth, or you get past them, you put on a plinth and you transfer it from one side to the other. So for example, the plinth, maybe say an oil drum. So you'd be sat in a chair, strapped into a wheelchair, and you'd pick the stone up, load it onto your chest, and without putting it down, change it over to the other side. So you've got core work, working your obliques, you know. But for example, we might start on 80 kilo stones, and the heaviest I've done in the stones is 140 kilos.
Wow.
But as the stones get heavier, because the knack is to get your arms around them, load it onto your chest, and then load it like that.
Yeah.
But as they get bigger, 120, 130, 140, it's difficult because they're that big. You can't get your arms around them.
No.
You know, so, and same with the log lift. When you're lifting a log overhead, I'm doing demonstrations here. I don't know why. 'Cause you can see me, Bob.
Yeah, I'm sweating already.
But again, it will be on a plinth, but you'll have a spotter each side as well, because if you get into, you know, the balance difficulties, and then you've got to load it onto your chest and then lock out, lifting it overhead. Deadlift, we do an adapted deadlift. And instead of the weight coming up in front of your legs like the standing guys do it, we do it seated, and the weight is under your legs. So you're bending down, picking it up off the floor, and you have to lock your back out and your arms out.
Are there any links for YouTube videos that we can see when you're actually competing?
Yeah. Well, there's always live feeds for competitions, which I usually let my friends know.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But yeah.
I was going to say, any listeners would like to see some of this, we can put on some links to YouTube or something, can't we?
Sure, it's usually on Facebook or YouTube. Yeah. There's another one as well, Periscope.
Right. Well, I'll put those on. I'll put those links on the show notes for people.
Yeah. So it's usually one of those three, or Facebook and YouTube.
So it's this very similar to the able-bodied, but obviously done in such a way that you're able to do them.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of event.
The able-bodied, another one, for example, like the dumbbell circus medley. So they go along from one, pick up off the floor, press it overhead, put it down the floor, move on to the next one, because they're going up in weight each time, but we'll be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
So you move the wheelchair to one, pick it up, load it onto your shoulder, press it overhead. Once you're locked out, the referee will give you the down, or say down, or blow a whistle.
Yeah.
Then you move on to the next one, and he'll give you the lift signal. Once you've pressed it, if you do press it cleanly, it'll go down. Then you go on to the next one.
It all sounds like a lot of hard work, Rick.
It is, yeah. But it's absolutely. It's
if you're trained up for it, you're okay. Yeah. So what about becoming the world's strongest man? Is that your next goal?
I'd like to. I'd definitely like to. Age isn't on my side because I'm 61 now. I'm 87 kilos at the moment, body weight. So I'm always the smallest anyway, and I'm always the eldest. Yeah. But to me, I always say a lot of it's in the head.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
So forget the age; it's in your head.
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, I've been training, as I said, weight training since I was 18. I'm 61 now. Yeah. You know, it's not when it's in your head. I don't mean that to be boastful or anything like that. I mean mentally.
How much drive you've got, and dedication to win.
I'm never one to go out and say, I'm going to watch this space tomorrow. I'm going to beat you. No. To to me, I've always, whether it's racing or strongman or whatever, you let your actions do the talking.
Yeah.
You know, if you go off, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to beat you, do this, that, and the other, you're just going to head for a downfall.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So you'll be the one who ends up with egg on your face.
Yes. Yeah.
So
less said the better.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So lots of competitions now this year coming up. Got the English Championship in May, which is at the Expo at Manchester. The Magnus Magnuson Classic in Canada in July.
Yeah.
Well, before that, in June, there's the British Championship, which I won last year, which is down in Somerset, at Shard in Somerset. July, Canada, the Magnus Magnuson. September, the European Championship in Spain. And then there'll be the Arnold's again at the NEC, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic, and then the World Championships in November in Vegas. So
you got a full year.
Yeah, and then obviously my involvement with the racing again, with the racing team.
Yeah. So
it's
going to be a busy year. Have you got any other projects coming up at all? Have you got any other challenges that you'd like to do?
Yeah. This shirt I'm wearing, I was hoping you asked me that actually.
Yeah. So just for listeners, this is Spinal Research.
Spinal Research, yeah. So some of the guys who I compete against, like cerebral palsy, spina bifida, and different classes.
Yeah.
But a very, very good friend of mine, Pete, from Leicester, we do train maybe once or twice a month. He'll come over to here to me. I'll go to Leicester or Coventry to train with him. But he's got spina bifida. So we've done 2 fundraising events for them. And so the first one we did was 2 years ago. And it was 72 years, the NHS. So we did 720 reps on 60 kilos. So how we did it was we worked it out. So we did 60 kilos, 10 reps every 5 minutes for 6 hours.
Wow.
So it worked out at 32 ton each we were lifting. So there's 5 of us started it, 3 of us finished.
Yes.
We did one earlier this year, which was to do it, see which one of us could do it in the quickest. The same again, 60 kilos. But then Pete messaged me last week, and the suggestion going out now is, and we're going to do it, but just to set a date, that it's 1,000 reps on 60 kilos. So it'll be 60 ton.
60 ton per person?
Yeah.
That is...
But in about 6 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. But the way we did it last time, because it's more against the clock rather than every 5 minutes, it was who could do it first.
Yes.
You know, and... so you just, it's a bit fun really between us, a bit of banter, but it's raising money for a good cause.
So next time I take my ton of logs from the back garden from the front and complain about how long it takes, I'll think of you on that, Rick.
All right, I'll come give you a lift.
Yeah, you come along.
Yeah. So that's apart from the strongman competitions coming up, and the racing events that I'm involved in.
And are you looking for sponsorship on this?
With the strongman?
With the Spinal Research?
Basically. Yeah. I'll put it out, whether it's on my Facebook or whatever, GoFundMe.
But again, we can put it on the show notes if there's any listeners that are interested.
But I haven't got a date for this one yet, but it will be coming up. Yeah. Definitely. So, and there's, again, it's, the people from Spinal Research, they appreciate what we do for them. Yeah. No, I mean, even if it's only like 400 quid or something like that. The first one we did nearly £800. And the last one was just over £400. But I think as people know you're doing it again or whatever, they get less interested in it. Yeah. So that's why we try and mix it up a bit and do it, whether it's against the clock or, the reps, 10 reps every 5 minutes. But this time it's going to be 1,000 reps. So let's say 60 kilos, 1,000 reps, it's 60 tons, isn't it? Yeah. So
that's a big project. Will you have to do extra special or anything different in your training regime for that?
No, I just load up on carbs before. Yeah, I think, I mean, even before a strongman comp, if you're not strong enough, you shouldn't be entering it. Right. Your training is done now. Yes. Leading up to it. Yeah. We don't usually know the events we're doing for a strongman comp, say 4 weeks, maximum 6 weeks beforehand, because then nobody's got an advantage. Right. Okay. You find out what your events are, say a month, 6 weeks before. That's interesting. Then you've all got the same amount of time to just focus on those events. Yes. So the idea is, make sure you're strong enough to do it anyway. Yeah. So do your all-round training all through the year. So you train every day? Most days. Last week I trained 8 times in a week. So a week last Saturday I trained in the morning and in the afternoon.
And what sort of length of time is each training session?
Anything up to 2.5, 3 hours. I trained this morning.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half, but that's because I was coming to see you.
Yeah.
So whether or not I do train or not again this afternoon, I'll see how I feel. But I do train a minimum of 6 times a week.
Do you use? I mean, I'm imagining you're on the whatever they're called, the bars.
Yeah.
Do you use kettlebells or?
Yeah.
Kettlebells
I was
as well?
doing kettlebell swings this morning, which is a great all rounder for your back, shoulders, core strengthening. Yeah. So this morning I've done chest. So bench press, dumbbell chest, flat flies,
Yeah.
Dips, weighted dips, which is for shoulders, traps, and triceps. So when you're doing bench press, your secondary muscles you're using is because you're pushing is your triceps. Yeah. So.
If there's any listeners out there who don't necessarily want to be the world's strongest man, but perhaps realise that they ought to be looking, because I think strength is pretty important as you get older. They don't particularly want to go to a gym. What sort of exercises would you recommend to them?
Lots of body weight exercises you can do. I mean, you can do a full body workout, for an hour. Different combinations as well. You don't just have to isolate one muscle group.
No.
You can do compound training, which is you're using more than one muscle group.
Yeah.
But simple things from, let's say, if you want to work your chest and your triceps, as we just said, so press ups. But if you want to make them harder, put your feet on a step, or your bottom stair at home, and it loads it more up onto your shoulders.
Yes.
As well, but it does make it harder. Abdominal work you can do. You get the old regulars of like the sit-ups, and
so you don't necessarily need
raises.
Specialist equipment. You can use your own body weight. And
own body weight. If you wanted to have some little bits of resistance, instead of like dumbbells, small dumbbells, a tin of baked beans in each hand.
Yeah.
It's so simple to do.
Yeah.
As long as you've got a bit of room in your lounge or whatever at home, bedroom. Yeah. There's always something you can do.
Well, it's been a fantastic privilege talking to you, Rick.
You too, Bob.
Where can people find out more about you?
If you Google me, either Rick Long, Disabled Strongman.
That's RICK.
RICK,
yeah.
Disabled Strongman. And also on there as well, to tell you a bit about me, TT history and that as well, my racing world championships. Or Facebook, I'm on Facebook. My profile picture on there is a picture of, well, 2 of them. One is at the Isle of Man TT going over a bridge, so I'm airborne in it. And then the other one is on a Formula 1 bike at Alton Park. But both the bikes, one's a Formula 1, one's a Formula 2, but they're yellow and blue in colours. So that's my profile pictures on Facebook.
All right, well, we'll put the links on the show notes. So great talking to you, Rick.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. Cheers.
You have been listening to Undercurrent Stories. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to share the show link to your friends and family, and if you have 60 seconds, I will be most grateful if you would please rate and review. To hear more episodes, please subscribe to the show and visit undercurrentstories.com. If you leave your email in the link, we will notify you as soon as new episodes are released. Also, check out our social media links, details of which can be found on the show notes. Until next time, this is Bob Wells wishing you all the very best.